There are places where time doesn't heal, places where the past refuses to die, and where silence hides secrets that no history book dared to record. Welcome to Dark Case Files. I'm your host, and before we begin today's story, I need you to do something for me. First, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what we uncover on this channel. Second, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from right now. Are you home alone? In your car? I want to know where in the world you are as we dive into this nightmare together. Today, we're heading into the Appalachian Mountains to tell the story of Ruth and Ruby Carter, two twin sisters, 18 years old, and a legacy so disturbing that the very community that lived through it chose to forget it. This is not a solved case. This is not an explained mystery. This is an open wound in a region that still bleeds in silence. And it all begins in the summer of 1973, Harlan County, southeastern Kentucky. Mountains covered in perpetual fog, dirt roads leading nowhere, and a community of less than 200 souls who lived according to God's laws and the law of silence. In 1973, there was no police station of its own, no hospital, just a Baptist church, a gas station, and houses scattered through the valleys. The pastor was Thomas Carter, a man of 52, thunderous voice in sermons, but trembling hands when it came to disciplining his daughters. Ruth and Ruby Carter were born on March 15, 1955, during a storm that tore the roof off the church. The midwife, Martha Boone, would say years later that she had never seen twins so identical, but with such different gazes. Ruth cried when she was born. Ruby just watched. The girls grew up in the pastoral house, a dark wooden structure atop a hill, isolated from other families. Their mother, Eleanor, died when they were 7 years old. Official cause, pneumonia. Whispered cause, suicide. Eleanor had left a diary. Only 3 pages were preserved, found decades later in a flooded basement. On one of them, it reads, "They talk when they think I'm not listening. Ruth talks to God. Ruby talks to something that answers back." At school, Ruth was popular. She smiled easily, helped her classmates. Ruby, on the other hand, sat in the back of the classroom and drew symbols in her notebooks, circles within circles, eyes without faces, hands intertwined forming chains. At age 12, a classmate named Billy Marsh tried to kiss Ruth in the school barn. The next day, Billy showed up mute, literally. Doctors found nothing wrong with his vocal cords. He just ... couldn't speak anymore. Billy only spoke again 3 years later. And the first thing he said was, "Ruby showed me what happens when you touch what isn't yours." Thomas Carter was known for preaching about original sin, divine punishment, and man's dual nature. But those who lived with him knew that his sermons were actually disguised confessions. He feared his own daughters. John Sawyer, church janitor, said in a 1998 interview, "I saw the pastor praying alone one night. He was crying. He said, 'Lord, I don't know which one was your blessing and which was your curse, but I know I can't separate them.' The twins were inseparable. They slept in the same bed, wore the same clothes, completed each other's sentences. But there was something more ... a symbiosis that went beyond fraternal bonding. Witnesses report that when Ruth got hurt, Ruby bled in the same place. When Ruby got sick, Ruth vomited. And when one of them laughed ... the other cried. At age 17, they both stopped attending school. Official reason, homeschooling. Real reason, the pastor didn't want them interacting with the outside world. But the outside world was about to interact with them. June 1973. Eli Turner, 19 years old, son of the farmer on the North Hill, went out to check the cattle and never came back. His pickup truck was found parked in front of the Carter property. Engine still warm, door open. Blood on the steering wheel. Deputy Sheriff Dale Perkins went to the pastoral house the next day. The twins were sitting on the porch, wearing identical white dresses, drinking lemonade. When asked about Eli, Ruth answered sweetly, "He stopped by here last night. Said he was leaving, that he couldn't stand this place anymore." Ruby just smiled. Perkins searched the property, found nothing. But he said, years later, that he never forgot the smell coming from the barn. It was like rotting meat mixed with flowers. It didn't make sense. 2 weeks after Eli's disappearance, farmers in the region started finding their animals dead, not attacked by predators, not poisoned, drained. Cows, pigs, chickens, all drained of blood, with precise cuts on the neck, arranged in perfect circles in the fields, and in the center of each circle, a symbol drawn with ashes. No one knew what it meant, but everyone knew where it came from. Pastor Carter denied any involvement, said his daughters were sick, resting. But neighbors began reporting something disturbing. Every night, around 3 a.m., a chant echoed from the Carter barn, a children's melody sung in 2 perfectly synchronized voices. Mirror, mirror, cracked in 2. One is me, and one is you. When the glass drinks deep and red, both will wake, but one is dead. On July 4th, 1973, the Baptist Church Cemetery was vandalized. 12 crosses were pulled from the ground and burned in a star formation. 7 graves were opened. The bodies ... untouched, but around each grave, footprints. Small footprints, female, barefoot, and they all led in the same direction, the Carter house. This time, when the sheriff went to investigate, he found something different. Ruth was alone, sitting in the living room, sewing a white dress. She looked up, smiled, and said, "Ruby went to visit our mother." "Your mother is dead, Ruth." "I know," she replied calmly. "That's why she went to visit her." Pastor Thomas Carter, unable to handle the pressure, finally confessed something to Sheriff Perkins. The twins were not his only daughters. There was a third, an older sister named Grace, who died at age 5. The same year, Eleanor Carter began to go mad. Grace was found drowned in the property well. Accident, they said. But Eleanor always insisted it wasn't an accident. They pushed her, both of them. I saw it. Eleanor was briefly institutionalized in 1960, but Thomas removed her from the psychiatric facility against medical orders. 3 months later, she was dead. And now, 13 years later, the twins were 18, legal adults, free from any institutional guardianship, free to do ... whatever they wanted. Sheriff Perkins began investigating on his own. He went to the old psychiatric hospital where Eleanor had been institutionalized. There, he found her clinical notes. In one of them, a psychiatrist wrote, "Patient insists her twin daughters perform nightly rituals taught by the woman in the mirror. Claims this entity demands sacrifices to maintain balance between the sisters. Diagnosis: severe postpartum psychosis." But there was something more. A handwritten note attached years later by a nurse. Eleanor Carter died of pneumonia. But before dying, she kept repeating, "Don't let them turn 18. Don't let them become one." July 15th, 1973, Sunday. Pastor Thomas Carter gave his last sermon. Witnesses present say he was pale, sweaty, trembling. He spoke about Cain and Abel, about how God sometimes marks his children to protect the world from them ... but that the mark isn't always visible. In the middle of the sermon, he stopped. He looked at his daughters, seated in the first row. Ruth was smiling. Ruby was not. Thomas came down from the pulpit, walked up to them, and whispered something that only those in the first row heard. "I should have let you die with her." Then he left, and was never seen alive again. On the morning of July 16th, Janitor John Sawyer went to the Carter property to check on the pastor. He found the barn locked from the inside. He forced his way in. What he saw made him vomit for 10 straight minutes. In the center of the barn, there was a circle drawn with dried blood. Inside it, carefully arranged objects, burned photographs, human teeth, locks of hair, and an antique mirror, cracked in half. And hanging from the ceiling, upside down, was Ruth Carter. White dress soaked in blood, hair braided with barbed wire, eyes open but empty. In her hands she held a note, written in childish handwriting. She is free now. I let her go. And now, I am both. Signed, Ruby. State police were called. Bloodhounds, helicopters, search teams. The entire region was scoured. Ruby Carter had disappeared, but the witnesses began. Confused reports, contradictory. A truck driver swore he saw a young woman in a white dress on Route 421 at 4 a.m., singing that song about mirrors. A family camping near the Clover River said they heard children's laughter coming from the trees. But when they went to check, they only found footprints that ended abruptly in the middle of the path. And Widow Agnes, who lived alone in the valley, called the police saying a girl had knocked on her door at midnight, asking to come in. I asked her name. She smiled and said, "Depends. Do you prefer Ruth or Ruby?" So I closed the door. When I looked through the window, there was no one there. After 3 weeks, the searches were officially called off. Ruby Carter was declared missing, presumed dead. The case was closed. Summer of 2023, 50 years after the events. Evelyn Price, 29 years old, investigative journalist, returns to Harlan County. She's not from there. But her grandmother ... was. Martha Boone, the midwife who helped deliver Ruth and Ruby. Martha died in 2022, leaving Evelyn a locked wooden box. Inside, letters, photographs, newspaper clippings, and a diary. Eleanor Carter's diary. Evelyn decides to investigate. She rents a house in the region, interviews the few old residents still alive, and begins putting together the puzzle no one wanted to complete. And then she finds something the police never found. A recording. In 1973, an anthropology student from the University of Kentucky was documenting rural Appalachian traditions. He passed through Harlan County days before Eli Turner's disappearance, and he recorded a conversation. Ruth and Ruby Carter, sitting on the porch, talking to each other. They didn't know they were being recorded. Evelyn gained access to the university archive and listened. Ruth's voice. Do you think it will hurt? Ruby's voice. Not for me, for you. Ruth, what if I don't want to? Ruby, you have no choice. We are one. We always have been. But only one can stay. Ruth, and the woman in the mirror? Ruby, she's waiting. She always has been. Ruth, I'm going to miss you. Ruby, no, because I'll be here. Inside you? Where I've always been. The recording ends with laughter, but it's not 2 laughs. It's just one ... echoing. Evelyn decides to do something reckless. She goes to the old Carter property. The house was abandoned, condemned. No one wanted to buy it. No one wanted to demolish it. She enters the barn, and there, on the walls covered in mold and darkness, she finds something that shouldn't be there. Photographs, recent. Polaroids dated 2021, 2022, 2023. They all show the same thing. A woman with gray hair, white dress, standing in the same spot where Ruth was found. But there's no body. There's nothing. Just the woman, smiling at the camera. And on the back of each photo, written in the same childish handwriting, I never left. Evelyn runs out. She calls the police, but when they arrive at the location, the photos are gone. There's no evidence. There's nothing. Just Evelyn, alone, insisting she's not crazy. But that night, when she returns to the rented house, there's a letter under the door. She opens it and reads, "Thank you for remembering us. Now we can remember you." Signed, Ruth, Ruby, Us. Evelyn Price left Harlan County the next day. She never published her investigation. When asked why, she said only, "Because some doors shouldn't be opened. And I opened one." Since then, residents of the region report the same phenomenon: a woman in a white dress, wandering the roads at night. Sometimes she looks young, sometimes old, sometimes. There are two. The Carter house is still there, empty, waiting. And if you ask the locals about Ruth and Ruby ... they'll deny it. They'll say they've never heard of them, that it's just legend. But if you look into their eyes, you'll see the fear, because they know the truth. Some stories are forgotten for a reason, not because they're not real, but because they're too real. This was the case of Ruth and Ruby Carter, the Appalachian twins, too young to be so evil, too terrible to be remembered. And perhaps they're still out there. If you drive through the Appalachian region on a foggy night and hear someone singing about mirrors ... keep driving, don't look back, and never, ever ... stop. Thank you for watching Dark Case Files. If you enjoyed this episode, smash that like button. It really helps us bring more forgotten cases to light. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a case. Drop a comment and let me know. Do you think Ruby is still out there? Would you investigate this case yourself? I read every single comment. And remember, the truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just waits. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep questioning everything.